The starling screamed through the void, its gravitic drives whining under the strain of a full burn. Cale Renard gripped the controls, his knuckles white, as the cockpit shuddered around him. Alarms blared, their shrill wails drowning out the hum of the ship's core. Outside, the Nexus Veil loomed, a swirling maelstrom of violet and indigo, its nebular tendrils clawing at the stars. Cale's heart pounded, not from the chase but from the cargo in the hold, a crate he hadn't dared open, its contents humming with a pulse that set his teeth on edge. "Proximity alert," chirped Vox, the Starling's Starshard AI, its voice a mix of sarcasm and urgency. "3 Veilith drones, closing fast. You want to keep running, or should we just wave a white flag and call it a day?" Cale ignored the jab, his eyes flicking to the rear display. 3 sleek obsidian shapes darted through the nebula's haze, their hulls shimmering with liquid light. Veilith, the galaxy's boogamen, whispered about in every spacer dive from Driftspire to the outer rim. Nobody crossed them and lived. Nobody smuggled their tech and expected to walk away. "Shut up and reroute power to the aft shields," Cale snapped, yanking the Starling into a corkscrew dive. The ship groaned, its patchwork frame protesting the maneuver. He rubbed the data coin in his pocket, a worn, silver disc etched with his sister Mara's initials. Her voice echoed in his mind. "You're too stubborn to die, Cale, but you're not smart enough to stay out of trouble." She'd been right. And now, 5 years after her death, he was proving it again. The drones fired, lancing the void with beams of searing white. One grazed the Starling's flank, and the ship bucked, throwing Cale against his harness. Sparks erupted from a console, filling the cockpit with the acrid stench of burnt wiring. "Vox, damage report. Hull integrity at 60%. Shields are holding, but another hit like that and we're space dust. Also, your coffee's spilled. Tragedy, really." Cale cursed under his breath, plotting a course toward Driftspire, the nearest spaceport. Its chaotic sprawl, hundreds of tethered asteroids laced with neon-lit docks and black market bazaars, might give him a chance to lose the drones. Or get him killed faster. Either way, he wasn't dying out here, not with that crate's secrets whispering in his hold. Driftspire was a sensory assault. The asteroid dock buzzed with life. Hawkers shouting in a dozen languages, the clatter of cargo drones, the tang of ozone and street food mingling in the air. Cale wove through the crowd, his hood up, the crate strapped to a hoversled behind him. The data coin burned in his pocket, a reminder of why he'd taken this job. Mara's death had been no accident. Concordium logs called it collateral damage, but Cale knew better. Someone had wanted her mission to fail. This crate stolen from a Veilith outpost might hold answers, or it might just be his death warrant. He ducked into an alley, the crate's hum louder now, almost a heartbeat. A shadow moved ahead, a figure cloaked in crystalline light, their form shimmering like a heat mirage. Cale froze, hand on his pulse pistol. "Show yourself," he growled. The figure stepped forward and the light resolved into a Sylvaris. They were tall, their translucent body a lattice of glowing facets like living quartz. A crystal shard hung from their neck, pulsing faintly. "I am Tessara," they said, their voice a melodic hum that vibrated in Cale's chest. "You carry a burden that sings of danger. I felt it from across the port." Cale's grip tightened on his pistol. "Felt it? What are you, some kind of psychic?" "Not psychic, empathic. The Sylvaris sense emotions, resonances." "Your crate, it screams." Tessara's facets dimmed, their shard flickering. "It is no ordinary cargo." "No kidding," Cale muttered, glancing over his shoulder. The crowd's noise masked any pursuit, but he felt eyes on him. "Look, I don't need a crystal seer poking into my business. Stay out of my way." Tessara tilted their head, unperturbed. "You cannot outrun the Veilith alone, nor the Concordium who hunt you as well. I offer aid, human." "For a price." Cale snorted. "What's that? My soul, a cut of the take." "Knowledge," Tessara said simply. "I seek to understand the individual, not the collective. Help me learn, and I will help you survive." Before Kale could reply, a blast rocked the alley. The crate's hoversled sparked and died, pinning him against the wall. Valith drones hummed overhead, their beams carving through the crowd. Screams erupted and Kale dove for cover, dragging Tessara with him. The Sylvaris didn't resist, their shard glowing brighter as they landed beside him. "Great," Kale muttered, firing at a drone. "Now I've got a glowing target for a partner." The bazaar was chaos. Kale and Tessara sprinted through stalls, dodging plasma bolts and toppling crates of glowing fruit. The crate dragged behind them, its hum now a wail that drew every eye. Kale's neural weave, a subdermal implant linking him to Vox, buzzed with static. "Vox, I need an exit now." "Working on it," Vox replied, its voice crackling. "Head for docking bay 17, got a friend there who owes me. Also, try not to die. I'd hate to find a new pilot." Kale gritted his teeth, hauling the crate around a corner. Tessara kept pace, their long limbs moving with unnatural grace. "Your starshard is spirited," they said, ducking a beam. "Yeah, Vox is a real charmer," Kale said, scanning the docks. Bay 17 was close, but the drones were closer. He needed a distraction. That's when the Krenvar appeared. He was short, wiry, with a patchwork jumpsuit and a limp that didn't slow him down. His four-fingered hands clutched a cobbled-together device that looked like a cross between a welder and a grenade launcher. "Oi, human," he shouted, his voice a gravelly rasp. "You the one stirring up the Valith, bad for business, that." Kale raised his pistol, but the Krenvar waved him off. "Name's Vrek. Saw your ship limp in, nice rig, terrible maintenance. Help me get that crate off planet, and I'll get you clear of this mess." "Why should I trust you?" Kale snapped, firing at a drone. It exploded in a shower of sparks, but more were coming. Vrek grinned, revealing jagged teeth. "'Cause I hate the Valith more than you do. They torched my clan. Plus, I want to look at that crate. Smells like rare tech." Tessara's shard pulsed. "He speaks truth, Kale. His pain is sharp." Kale didn't have time to argue. "Fine. Bay 17, move." Docking Bay 17 was a junkyard of half-repaired ships and discarded parts. The Starling sat at the far end, its hull scorched but intact. Vrek led the way, limping but fast, his device humming as he scanned the crate. "This thing's got a Shatterpoint core," he muttered, eyes wide. "No wonder the Valith want it. This could rewrite physics." "Less geek, more speed," Kale said, shoving the crate toward the Starling's ramp. Tessara followed, their shard now blazing like a tiny star. The drones were closing, their beams slicing through the bay's scaffolding. Vrek fired his device, and a pulse of distorted gravity knocked two drones into a wall. "Told you I'm useful," he said, grinning. They reached the Starling just as a new figure emerged from the shadows, a Valith, cloaked in liquid light. Their voice was a cold whisper, cutting through the chaos. "You carry the key to the Shatterpoint, human. Surrender it or this port burns." Kale's blood ran cold. The Valith's presence warped the air, bending light around them. Tessara stepped forward, their shard flaring. "You are Urin Valith," they said, voice steady. "Your kind hides the truth of the Shatterpoint. It is no weapon, it is a choice." Urin's cloak shimmered. "Choices are dangerous, Sylvaris. Especially in unworthy hands." Kale didn't wait for more. He shoved the crate into the Starling's hold, shouting, "Vox, prep for launch. Full burn now." The ship's drives roared to life, drowning out Urin's reply. Vrek and Tessara piled in, and Kale slammed the ramp shut. The Starling lurched upward, blasting through the bay's force field into the void. Drones pursued, but the nebula's rift swallowed their beams, giving Kale a narrow window. He collapsed into the pilot's seat, panting. The crate's hum filled the cockpit, louder now, almost alive. Tessara sat beside him, their shard dimming. "The Shatterpoint," they said softly. "It is real. And it calls to us." Vrek leaned against a bulkhead, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yeah, and it's gonna get us all killed. Worth it, though, for a peek at that core." Kale rubbed the data coin, Mara's voice echoing again. "You're not smart enough to stay out of trouble." He glanced at his new crew, Tessara's glowing resolve, Vrek's cynical grin, and felt the weight of the crate's secrets. The Nexus Veil loomed ahead, its rifts hiding answers or oblivion. "Vox," he said, voice steady, "set course for the Veil, deep as we can go." "Suicidal but fun," Vox replied. "Engaging drives, try not to puke." The Starling plunged into the nebula, the crate's pulse syncing with Kale's heartbeat. Whatever the Shatterpoint was, it was no longer just cargo. It was his destiny, or his doom. The Starling carved through the Nexus Veil, its hull trembling as tendrils of violet nebula gas swirled past the viewports. Inside the cockpit, the air was thick with tension and the faint ozone tang of overloaded systems. Kale Renar slouched in the pilot's seat, one hand on the controls, the other rubbing the data coin in his pocket. Its worn edges grounded him, a tether to his sister Mara's memory, but it couldn't quiet the hum from the cargo hold, a pulse that seemed to sync with his heartbeat, growing louder with every light year into the Veil. "Anomaly detected," Vox announced, the Starshard AI's voice cutting through the cockpit's hum. "Spacetime rift, dead ahead. Recommend evasive maneuvers unless you're keen on becoming a cosmic smear." Kale's eyes flicked to the nav display. A jagged tear in reality loomed, its edges shimmering with distorted starlight like a wound in the universe. The Nexus Veil was riddled with such rifts, remnants of ancient experiments, or so the spacers' tailies went. Kale didn't care about legends, he cared about staying alive. "Plot a course around it," he said, voice tight, "and keep scanning for Veilith signatures. Urin's not the type to give up." "Scanning," Vox replied, with a theatrical sigh. "Also, your new friends are bickering in the hold. Want me to pipe in the drama? It's better than a Driftspire soapcast." Kale grimaced. Tessara and Vrek had been at odds since they'd boarded, hardly a surprise, given a Sylvaris outcast's idealism clashing with a Krenvar scavenger's cynicism. He needed them to work together, not tear each other apart. The crate's secrets, the Shatterpoint core Vrek had identified, were too dangerous for a fractured crew. "Just keep us flying, Vox. I'll handle the babysitting." He pushed out of the seat, wincing as the Starling shuddered through a pocket of turbulence. The Veil's rifts played havoc with gravitic drives, and the ship's patchwork repairs weren't helping. Kale made his way to the cargo hold, the data coins weighed a quiet reminder of why he was here. Answers about Mara's death, buried in the crate's hum. The hold was a cramped maze of crates, spare parts, and flickering lights. The Shatterpoint core's container dominated the center, its surface etched with Veilith runes that pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows. Tessara stood before it, their crystalline form glowing softly, the shard at their neck flaring with each pulse from the crate. Vrek crouched nearby, his limping gait exaggerated as he tinkered with a scanner, muttering to his tools in Krenvar slang. "It is not a toy," Tessara said, their melodic voice sharp with disapproval. "You prod at forces you do not understand, Krenvar. The core sings of creation and destruction." Vrek snorted, not looking up. "Sings, huh? All I hear's a paycheck or a bomb. This tech's beyond anything I've scavenged, and I've cracked open Concordium warheads, so spare me the mystic nonsense." His four-fingered hand adjusted the scanner, which beeped erratically. Kale leaned against a bulkhead, arms crossed. "You two done? Because we've got Veilith drones and spacetime rifts to worry about, and I'd rather not die to your ego contest." Tessara turned, their facets catching the hold's dim tin light, throwing prisms of color across the walls. "You assume we are enemies, Kale Renar, but the core is no mere device. It is a choice, a pivot upon which realities turn." Kale's jaw tightened. "Save the philosophy. Can you tell me what it does? Or are you just here to glow and lecture?" Tessara's shard dimmed, a sign of frustration. "I sense its resonance, but its truth is veiled. It manipulates probabilities, bending spacetime. In the wrong hands, It could unravel worlds. Vrek chuckled, limping closer to the crate. Unravel worlds sounds like my kind of party. If we can crack it open, we could sell it to the Concordium, or use it to stick it to the Valeth. His eyes gleamed with a mix of greed and vengeance, the scar across his cheek twitching. Kale rubbed the data coin, his sister's voice echoing. You always pick the hard way, Kale. Mara had trusted the Concordium, and it had cost her life. He wouldn't make the same mistake. Nobody's cracking anything until we know more. Tessara, keep probing it, gently. Vrek, get that scanner working, and both of you try not to kill each other. Before they could respond, the starling lurched violently, throwing Kale against a crate. Alarms blared and Vox's voice crackled through the neural weave. Rifts pulling us in. Gravitic drives are overloading. Suggest you strap in unless you enjoy free-floating in a void. The cockpit was a chaos of flashing lights and screeching alarms. Kale dove into the pilot's seat, hands flying over the controls. The nav display showed the rift's maw, its distorted edges warping the stars into smears of light. The starling's drive screamed, their hum rising to a bone-rattling whine. Vox, divert all power to the shields, Kale shouted, yanking the controls to stabilize the ship. The G-forces pressed him into the seat, his vision blurring at the edges. Diverting, Vox said, its usual sarcasm muted. But we're caught in the rift's gravitic well. Escape velocity's impossible unless we shed mass or boost thrust. Kale's mind raced. Shedding mass meant jettisoning cargo, possibly the crate. Boosting thrust meant risking a drive meltdown. Neither option was good. He glanced at the rear display, half expecting Valeth drones, but the Veil's interference masked any pursuit. For now, Tessara and Vrek stumbled into the cockpit, bracing against the bulkheads. Tessara's shard blazed, their voice steady despite the chaos. The rift is no accident. The core's resonance is amplifying it, drawing us in. Great, Kale muttered, wrestling the controls. Any ideas, or are we just screwed? Vrek limped to a console, his scanner still clutched in one hand. If we can't outrun it, we ride it, reroute the core's energy to the drives. It's risky, but it might give us the kick we need. Kale hesitated. The core was their only leverage, their only clue to Mara's death. But dying in a rift wasn't exactly plan A. Do it, he said finally. Tessara, help him. Don't blow us up. The Sylvaris and Krenvar worked fast, Tessara's crystalline fingers tracing the crate's runes, while Vrek patched cables into the Starling's power grid. The core's hum intensified, a deep thrum that vibrated through the hull, making Kale's teeth ache. Sparks flew from Vrek's makeshift rig, and Tessara's shard pulsed in sync with the core, their facets glowing blindingly bright. It is alive, Tessara murmured almost to themselves. It feels curiosity. Less feeling, more fixing, Vrek snapped, slamming a panel shut. Rerouting now. The Starling surged forward, the drives roaring as the core's energy flooded the system. The rift's pull weakened, and the nav display showed their trajectory stabilizing. Kale exhaled, his grip on the controls easing. Nice work, he said, glancing at his crew. Now let's not do that again. Vox's voice cut in, dry as ever. Oh, I'm sure you'll find worse trouble soon. It's your specialty. The Starling limped through the veil, its systems battered but functional. Kale stayed in the cockpit, plotting a course toward Etherian, the Sylvaris homeworld. Tessara had insisted their people could help decipher the core's secrets, and Kale was out of better ideas. The Concordium was likely hunting them, and Urin Valeth wasn't far behind. Etherian's crystalline spires, hidden deep in the veil, might offer sanctuary or a trap. In the hold, Tessara knelt before the core, their shard glowing softly. The Sylvaris had always been a mystery to Kale, their hive mind linking millions of minds across light years. But Tessara was different, an outcast who'd chosen individuality over the collective. Kale envied their clarity, even if he didn't understand it. You really think your people will help us? he asked, leaning against a crate. Last I checked, Sylvaris don't exactly love outsiders. Tessara's facets shimmered, reflecting the hold's dim light. They will listen if I speak, but they fear the Shatterpoint as much as the Valith guard it. It threatens their harmony, their unity. Kale snorted. Unity's overrated, gets people killed when it blinds them to the truth. Like Mara trusting the Concordium's orders, like him failing to save her. Tessara tilted their head, their shard pulsing gently. Your pain is heavy, Kale Renar. It shapes you, but it need not define you. Kale's hand tightened around the data coin. Save the therapy. Just tell me what you saw when you touched the core. Tessara hesitated, their voice soft. Fragments, a war long ago. The Valith built the Shatterpoint to control fate, to choose one reality over others, but it fractured their world. They hid it, fearing its power. Now it wakes, and it seeks a wielder. Kale's stomach twisted. A device that could rewrite reality. No wonder Urin wanted it back. No wonder the Concordium was sniffing around. And you think it's choosing us? Perhaps, Tessara said, or testing us. Vrek was in the engine bay, surrounded by salvaged parts and the faint smell of scorched metal. His limp slowed him, but his hands moved with practiced speed, repairing the gravitic drives. Kale found him muttering to a wrench, his scarred face lit by a flickering hollow display. You're gonna wear that thing out, talking to it like it's your girlfriend, Kale said, nodding at the wrench. Vrek grinned, his jagged teeth glinting. She's more reliable than most people, never stabbed me in the back. He paused, his grin fading. Unlike the Valith, torched my clan for scavenging too close to one of their outposts, left me this. He tapped his scarred leg. Kale nodded, recognizing the weight of loss. I'm sorry, but this core, it's bigger than revenge. If Tessara's right, it could change everything. Vrek's eyes narrowed. Change, sure, but for who? The Concordium, the Sylvaris, or us? He leaned closer, voice low. You're not the only one with ghosts, human. That core could make the Valith pay. Don't let your bleeding heart get in the way. Kale met his gaze, the data coin heavy in his pocket. I want answers, Vrek, not just blood. Help me get to Etherian, and we'll see who pays. Vrek grunted, returning to his repairs. Fine, but if it's a choice between answers and survival, I'm picking the one that keeps me breathing. Hours later, the starling hit trouble again. Vox's voice blared through the neural weave. Incoming transmission, encrypted. Looks like Concordium codes, but it's sloppy. Want to take a peek? Kale frowned, back in the cockpit. Sloppy how? Like someone's trying to hide their Concordium, Vox said. Could be a trap, could be a friend. Your call. Kale's gut churned. The Concordium had burned him before, but this could be a lead or a betrayal. Patch it through. Audio only. A voice crackled over the comms, distorted but human. Renar, this is Operative Thorn. I know you've got the core. The Concordium wants it, but I can get you clear. Meet me at these coordinates alone. Bring the core, and I'll give you the truth about Mara. Kale's blood ran cold. Mara's name used like bait. He gripped the data coin so hard it bit into his palm. How do you know about her? He growled. Meet me and find out, Thorn said. But hurry. The Valith are closing in, and I'm not the only one tracking you. The transmission cut off, leaving silence. Kale stared at the coordinates on the nav display, a remote asteroid cluster just outside the Veil. Tessara and Vrek entered the cockpit, sensing the shift in his mood. What is it? Tessara asked, their shard pulsing faintly. Kale's voice was low, raw. Someone claims they know about my sister's death. Wants the core in exchange. Vrek snorted. Trap, Concordium's playing you. They don't deal, they take. Tessara's facets dimmed. Or it is a test. The core seeks those who choose wisely. What does your heart say, Kale? Kale rubbed the data coin, Mara's voice echoing. You're too stubborn to die. He wanted answers, but he wasn't a fool. It's a risk, he said finally, but we're not going in blind. Vrek, rig a decoy signal to mask our approach. Tisara, scan for Valith or Concordium ships. We'll check it out, but on our terms. The asteroid cluster was a graveyard of jagged rock and frozen gas, lit by the Veil's eerie glow. The Starling drifted in stealth mode, its emissions dampened by Vrek's decoy. Kale piloted manually, weaving through debris, his nerves taut. Tisara sat beside him, their shard glowing as they scanned the void. "Two ships," Tisara said, voice tense. "Concordium signatures cloaked, and something else. Valith perhaps, but faint." Kale cursed under his breath. "Thorn's not alone. Vox, prep the weapons." "Vrek, you ready with that decoy?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Vrek called from the engine bay. "Say the word and I'll light up the void." Kale's hand hovered over the controls, the data coin a heavy weight. This could be his chance to learn the truth about Mara, or a one-way ticket to oblivion. He glanced at Tisara, their shard steady, and Vrek, his scarred face set with determination. They were his crew, whether he liked it or not. And they were in this together. "All right," Kale said, voice firm. "We spring the trap. Vox, lock onto those Concordium ships. Tisara, keep the core stable. Vrek, hit the decoy on my mark. Let's see who's playing who." The Starling surged forward, the Veil's glow bathing the cockpit in violet light. The core's hum filled the ship, a heartbeat echoing Kale's own. Ahead the asteroid cluster loomed, hiding allies, enemies, or both. Mara's memory burned in his mind, urging him on. "Mark," Kale said. Vrek's decoy flared, a false signal blazing across the void. The Concordium ships decloaked, their sleek hulls glinting as they opened fire. But Kale was ready. The Starling banked hard, its pulse cannons roaring. Tisara's shard blazed, their voice rising in a melodic chant that steadied the core's pulse. Vrek whooped from the engine bay, rerouting power to the shields. And then, from the shadows of the asteroids, a Valith cruiser emerged, its liquid-light hull warping the stars. Urin Valith's voice hissed through the comms, cold and inevitable. "You cannot outrun fate, Kale Renar. The Shatterpoint is ours." Kale grinned, a feral edge to it. "Come and get it then." The Starling dove into the fray, the cores hum a battle cry. The Veil's rifts pulsed around them, reality itself trembling as the fight for the Shatterpoint began. The Starling shuddered as pulse cannon fire tore through the asteroid cluster, its shields flaring under the onslaught. Kale Renar gripped the controls, his jaw set, as the cockpit glowed with the violet haze of the Nexus Veil. Outside, the Concordium ships, sleek angular predators, wove through jagged rocks, their beams slicing the void. But it was the Valith cruiser, its liquid-light hull warping the stars, that sent a chill down Kale's spine. Urin Valith's voice still echoed in his mind, cold and unyielding. "You cannot outrun fate, Kale Renar." "Vox status," Kale shouted, banking the Starling to avoid a barrage. The ship groaned, its patchwork frame straining against the G-forces. "Shields at 30%, Vox," the Starshard AI replied, its sarcasm edged with urgency. "Drives are overheating, and we've got 2 Concordium frigates plus that Valith nightmare on our tail. Also, your coffee's cold." "Priorities, you know." Kale ignored the jab, his eyes locked on the nav display. The asteroid cluster was a death trap, its debris a maze of spinning rock and frozen gas. Tisara sat beside him, their crystalline facets blazing as their shard pulsed in sync with the Shatterpoint core's hum, now a deafening thrum that vibrated through the hull. Vrek was in the engine bay, his gravelly curses audible over the neural weave as he wrestled with the ship's faltering systems. "We can't outrun them," Tisara said, their melodic voice steady despite the chaos. "The core's resonance is drawing the rifts closer. We must reach Etherian. My people can shield us." Kale's hand tightened on the data coin in his pocket, Mara's initials etched into its worn surface. Her voice haunted him. "You're too stubborn to die, Kale." He'd come too far for answers to lose it all now. "Etherian's our only shot," he said, plotting a course through the Veil's heart. Vrek, give me everything the drives have. Tisara, keep that core from blowing us apart. Vrek's voice crackled through the weave. Drives are at redline, but I'm not a miracle worker. Another hit, and we're limping on fumes. Tisara's shard flared, their fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. The core is awake. It senses our intent. I will try to calm it. Kale didn't have time to question Silvaris' mysticism. He dove the Starling through a gap in the asteroids, the ship scraping against a rock with a scream of metal. The Concordium frigates pursued, but the Valith cruiser hung back, its presence a silent threat. Kale's gut told him Urin was waiting, biding their time. The Shatterpoint core wasn't just cargo, it was a key, and they'd burn the expanse to keep it locked. "Vox, decoy signal now," Kale barked. "Deploying," Vox said. A false signature flared on the nav display, luring one frigate into a collision with an asteroid. The explosion lit the void, but the second frigate adjusted, its beams grazing the Starling's flank. Alarms wailed, and the cockpit filled with the acrid stench of burnt wiring. "Shields critical," Vox warned. "One more hit, and we're—" The ship lurched as a rift opened ahead, its jagged maw distorting the stars. The core's hum spiked, a pulse that made Kale's teeth ache. Tisara gasped, their shard blazing like a tiny sun. "The core is amplifying the rift. We cannot avoid it." Kale's mind raced. The rift could tear them apart, or it could be their escape. "Hold on," he shouted, slamming the controls forward. The Starling plunged into the rift, reality bending around them. Colors bled into impossible hues, and the hum became a roar, drowning out the alarms. Kale's vision blurred, Mara's face flickering in his mind, her smile, her final scream. Then silence. The Starling emerged in a pocket of calm, the veil's chaos replaced by a shimmering expanse of crystal spires. Etherian. The Silvaris homeworld glowed like a jewel, its towers refracting the nebula's light into rainbows that danced across the void. Kale exhaled, his hands trembling. They'd made it, for now. Etherian's surface was a symphony of light and sound. The Starling docked in a crystalline hangar, its hull scorched and scarred. Kale stepped onto the platform, the air cool and tingling with static, like a storm about to break. The spires loomed above, their facets humming with a low, resonant song that vibrated in his chest. Silvaris moved through the hangar, their translucent forms gliding with purpose, their shards pulsing in unison. Kale felt like an intruder, his boots scuffing the polished floor, the data coin heavy in his pocket. Tisara led the way, their shard glowing softly. "The Council of Harmonies awaits," they said, their voice a mix of hope and dread. "They will judge the core and us." Vrek limped behind, his scanner clutched like a lifeline. "Judge us." For what? Saving their shiny backsides from the Valith? His scarred cheek twitched, his eyes scanning the spires with a scavenger's hunger. "This place is a tech goldmine. One shard and I'd be set for life." Kale shot him a look. "Focus, Vrek. We're not here to steal. We need their help, not their wrath." Vrek grunted, but his limp slowed, his gaze lingering on a Silvaris carrying a glowing orb. Kale understood the temptation. Etherian's tech could make a scavenger's fortune, but Vrek's vendetta against the Valith ran deeper. Kale hoped it wouldn't burn them all. The council chamber was a vast dome, its walls a mosaic of shifting crystals that pulsed with light. 7 Silvaris sat in a circle, their shards blazing, their forms radiating authority. The Shatterpoint core rested on a pedestal at the center, its runes glowing brighter than ever, its hum a heartbeat that filled the chamber. Kale stood beside Tisara and Vrek, his pulse racing. The Silvaris collective gaze felt like a weight, probing his thoughts, his guilt. "Outcast Tisara," the lead Silvaris intoned, their voice a chorus of harmonies. "You bring a danger that threatens the expanse. Why do you disturb our harmony?" Tisara stepped forward, their shard steady. "Honored harmonies, the Shatterpoint core is no mere artifact. It is a choice, a power that could unite or destroy." I bring it to seek guidance, not discord. The council's shards pulsed, their light dimming. You rejected our unity, another said, their tone sharp. Yet you return, bearing chaos. The Vailith guard the Shatterpoint for a reason. Its power is not for mortals. Kale's temper flared. Mortals or not, we're the ones keeping it out of Vailith hands. Urin's out there, hunting us. You want to sit here singing about harmony while they burn the galaxy. The council's light flared, and Kale felt a pressure in his mind, like fingers brushing his thoughts. Tessara's shard pulsed, shielding him. He speaks from pain, they said softly, but his heart is true. The core chose us. We cannot ignore its call. Vrek snorted, leaning on his scanner. Chose us. It's a machine, not a deity. Let's crack a bit and see what it does, or sell it and be done. The council's gaze turned to Vrek, their light cold. Your greed blinds you, Krenvar. The Shatterpoint reshapes reality. It could erase your kind, or all kinds. Kale's hand closed around the data coin, Mara's voice echoing. You're not smart enough to stay out of trouble. He stepped forward, voice low. Look, I don't care about your cosmic debates. My sister died because of secrets like this. The Concordium lied, the Vailith killed, and I'm done running. Help us understand the core, or we're all dead. The lead Sylvaris tilted their head, their shard softening. Your pain resonates, Kale Renar, but the Shatterpoint demands sacrifice. Are you prepared to pay its price? Before Kale could answer, the chamber shook, a deep rumble that cracked the crystal floor. Alarms sang through the spires and Tessara's shard blazed. The Vailith, they whispered. They have come. Urin Vailith's cruiser hung above Etherian, its liquid light hull casting shadows across the spires. Drones poured from its bays, their beams carving through crystal, sending shards raining like glittering hail. The Sylvaris fought back, their orbs unleashing pulses of harmonic energy that shattered drones mid-flight. But the Vailith were relentless, their technology bending reality itself. Drones flickered in and out of existence, beams curved through impossible angles. Kale, Tessara, and Vrek sprinted through the collapsing chamber, the core strapped to a hoversled behind them. The council had scattered, their harmonies disrupted by the attack. Kale's pulse pistol was useless against Vailith tech, but he fired anyway, downing a drone that strayed too close. Tessara, where's the starling? He shouted, dodging a falling crystal. The hangar, Tessara called, their shard blazing as they deflected a beam with a harmonic pulse. But the core, it resists. It wants to stay. Wants, Vrek snapped, limping as he fired his cobbled-together gravitic pulse. It's a damned machine. Tell it to shut up and move. Kale's neural weave buzzed with Vox's voice. Hangar's under fire, but I've got the starling warmed up. Hurry, or I'm leaving without you. No offense. The spires were a war zone. Sylvaris civilians fled, their shards dimming in panic, while warriors formed crystalline barriers, only to be shattered by Vailith beams. Kale's chest tightened. Driftspire's chaos had been bad, but this was slaughter. He grabbed Tessara's arm, pulling them toward the hangar. Your people are dying. We need to get the core out of here. Tessara's facets dimmed, their voice raw. I abandoned them once. I cannot again. Kale met their gaze, seeing his own guilt reflected. You're not abandoning them, you're saving them. The core's what Urin wants. We take it, we draw her away. Tessara hesitated, then nodded, their shard flaring with resolve. Vrek grunted, hauling the sled. Heroics, great, let's not die for it. The hangar was an inferno of light and sound. The starling sat at the far end, its ramp down, Vox's cannons firing at drones. Kale's lungs burned as he ran, the core's hum a roar that drowned out the chaos. They were almost there when Urin Vailith appeared, their cloak of liquid light shimmering as they stepped from a rift. Reality warped around them, the air twisting like heat on a desert road. You cannot wield the Shatterpoint, Urin said, their voice a cold whisper that cut through the din. It is not yours to choose. Kale raised his pistol, but Tessara stepped forward, their shard blazing. You fear its choice, Urin Valeth. You guard it to control fate, but fate is not yours alone. Urin's cloak flared, and a pulse of energy knocked Tessara back. Kale caught them, his arm around their crystalline form. "Vrek, get the core to the ship," he shouted. Vrek hesitated, his scarred face torn. "You're crazy, human, but I like crazy." He hauled the sled toward the starling, firing his pulse at drones. Kale faced Urin, Tessara at his side. The Valeth's presence was suffocating, their eyes like voids. "You're wrong," Kale said, voice steady. "The core's not about control, it's about what we do with it. And I'm not letting you decide." Urin tilted their head, a flicker of curiosity in their gaze. "Bold words, Kale Renar, but your sister thought the same and she fell." Kale's blood ran cold, the data coin burning in his pocket. "What do you know about Mara?" he growled. Urin's cloak shimmered. "She sought the Shatterpoint, she paid the price, as will you." Rage surged through Kale, but Tessara's shard pulsed, grounding him. "He is not alone," they said, their voice rising in a harmonic chant. The core's hum joined them, a chorus that shook the hangar. Sylvaris warriors rallied, their orbs flaring, pushing back the drones. Urin's gaze narrowed, and they raised a hand, summoning a rift. But Kale was faster. He tackled Tessara behind a crystal pillar as the rift tore through the hangar, swallowing drones and debris. "Go," he shouted, shoving Tessara toward the starling. They ran, the core's sled sparking as Vrek hauled it aboard. The starling's drives roared, and Kale dove through the ramp as it closed, the ship lurching into the sky. Etherian spires shrank below, their light fading under the Valeth's assault. The starling fled through the veil, its systems screaming. Kale sat in the cockpit, his hands shaking, the data coin clutched in his fist. Urin's words burned. She sought the Shatterpoint. Mara had been chasing the same truth, and it had killed her. He'd failed her then. He wouldn't fail now. Tessara knelt in the hold, their shard dim, their facets cracked from the rift's energy. "My people," they whispered, voice breaking. "I brought this upon them." Kale crouched beside them, his voice soft. "You didn't. Urin did, and we're going to stop her." Vrek limped in, his jumpsuit scorched. "Stop her? With what?" "The core's unstable, and we're one hit from falling apart." He paused, his scarred face softening. "But you got us out, that's something." Kale managed a tired smile. "Yeah, something." Vox's voice cut through. "Incoming rift, bigger than the last. And the Valeth cruiser's back. Suggestions." Tessara's shard flared, their voice resolute. "The core's heart lies within the rift. We must face it together." Kale nodded, the data coin warm in his hand. Mara's memory urged him on, not as guilt, but as strength. "Vox, take us in. Vrek, rig the core to overload if we need it. Tessara, guide us." The starling dove into the rift, reality fracturing around them. The core's hum became a scream, and Tessara's chant rose, linking their shard to the Sylvaris hive mind. Visions flooded Kale's mind, worlds born and unmade, the Shatterpoint's power to choose one reality over countless others. Urin's cruiser followed, its beams tearing through the rift's edges. The rift's heart was a maelstrom of light, the core's pedestal floating at its center. Kale piloted the starling closer, the ship buckling. Urin appeared on the viewscreen, their cloak blazing. "You cannot wield it," they said. "It will consume you." Kale's voice was steel. "Maybe, but I'm done letting you choose." Tessara's chant peaked, their shard shattering as they bridged the hive mind to the core. The Sylvaris collective strength flowed through them, stabilizing the rift. Vrek activated his rig, the core glowing white-hot. "Overload ready," he said, his limp forgot, his eyes fierce. "Make it count." Kale faced the core, its light blinding. Mara's face flickered in his mind, her smile warm. "You're enough, Kale." He reached for the core, his hand trembling, and chose, not to wield it, but to end it. He slammed the overload trigger, and the core erupted, its light consuming the rift. Urin's scream echoed as the cruiser vanished, the rift collapsing. The starling was thrown clear, its systems dead, drifting in the veil's calm. Tessara collapsed, their facets dull but alive. Vrek slumped against a bulkhead, grinning. Told you I'm useful. Kale sat back, the data coin in his hand. The core was gone, its power neutralized. Etherian was wounded, but the Sylvaris would rebuild. Urin was defeated, but the Valith lingered. And Mara's truth remained elusive, but Kale felt her presence guiding him. He looked at his crew, Tessara's quiet strength, Vrek's scarred resilience, and knew they'd changed him. The Shatterpoint was gone, but its choice lived in them. The Starling drifted in the quiet heart of the Nexus Veil, its scorched hull bathed in the nebula's violet glow. Inside, the silence was heavier than the void outside. No alarms, no hum from the Shatterpoint core, no crackle of Vox's sarcastic quips. The ship systems were dark, its gravitic drives cold after the rift's collapse. Kale Renar sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the cracked viewscreen, where stars flickered through tendrils of nebular gas. His fingers traced the data coin in his pocket, Mara's initials worn smooth by years of guilt and hope. The core was gone, its power unmade, but the weight of its choice lingered, pressing against his chest like a second heartbeat. Tessara rested in the hold, their crystalline facets dulled, the shard at their neck now a lifeless husk. The sacrifice of their connection to the Sylvaris hive mind had saved them, but at a cost Kale couldn't fathom. Vrek slumped against a bulkhead in the engine bay, his scarred face lit by the faint glow of a salvaged holotool, his limp more pronounced after the battle. The crew was alive, but Etherian's wounds, Urin Valith's defeat, and the unanswered truth about Mara's death hung over them, a shadow no victory could dispel. Kale's neural weave buzzed faintly, Vox's voice a weak flicker. Power's at 5%. Life support's holding, but we're not dancing through the veil anytime soon. Got a plan, or are we just stargazing? Kale's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. Working on it, Vox. Scan for any signals, Sylvaris, Concordium, anything. We need a way out. Scanning, Vox said, its tone subdued. Also, your coffee's a lost cause, just saying. Kale leaned back, the data coin warm in his hand. Mara's voice echoed, softer now. You're enough, Kale. He'd chosen to destroy the Shatterpoint, not to wield it, sparing the expanse from its reality-warping power. But the cost, Tessara's shard, Etherian's scars, his own unanswered questions, felt like a debt he'd never repay. He pushed out of the seat, his boots heavy on the grated floor, and headed to the hold. The crew needed him, and for once he wouldn't run from that. The hold was dim, lit only by emergency strips casting long shadows across the crates. Tessara sat cross-legged before the empty pedestal where the core had been, their facets reflecting the faint light like shattered glass. Without their shard's glow, they seemed smaller, more fragile, yet their presence filled the space with quiet resolve. Kale knelt beside them, the air cool and tinged with the metallic tang of burnt circuits. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. It was a stupid question, but he didn't know what else to say. Tessara's head tilted, their melodic voice softer, stripped of its harmonic depth. "I am unmoored. The hive mind is silent to me now. I chose this to save us, to save Etherian, but the silence is heavy." Kale's throat tightened. He knew silence, 5 years of it since Mara's death. You gave up everything to stop Urin. That's not nothing, Tessara. Your people will rebuild because of you. Their facets shimmered faintly, a flicker of their old light. And you, Kale Renar. You chose to unmake the Shatterpoint, though it could have answered your pain. Why? Kale's fingers closed around the data coin, Mara's smile flashing in his mind, her laugh, her stubborn faith in him. Because it wasn't just about me. Mara, she'd have wanted me to protect what matters, not chase ghosts. You, Vrek, the Expanse, you're what matters now. Tessara's gaze held his, their voice a whisper. You have grown human. Your heart sings, even in sorrow. Kale managed a crooked smile. Don't get sappy on me, we're not out of this yet. A clatter from the engine bay broke the moment. Vrek's voice carried, laced with Krenvar slang and a string of curses. Damned relays. Work, you stubborn piece of. Oi, Renar, you gonna sit there brooding or help me save our sorry hides? Kale stood, offering Tisaro a hand. Come on. Let's make sure Vrek doesn't blow us up. The engine bay was a jungle of exposed wires, salvaged parts, and the faint hum of a struggling power core. Vrek knelt amid the chaos, his four-fingered hands moving with a scavenger's precision, his holotool projecting a flickering schematic of the Starling's drives. His jumpsuit was singed, his scarred cheek twitching as he muttered to a wrench, his limp forgotten in his focus. The air smelled of ozone and sweat, the walls scarred from the rift's energy. About time, Vrek grunted, not looking up. Drives are shot, but I've got a bypass rigged. Might get us limping to a Sylvaris outpost if we don't fry first. Kale crouched beside him, scanning the schematic. You're a genius, Vrek, but this looks like a fire hazard. Sure it'll hold. Vrek's jagged teeth flashed in a grin. Genius, huh? Keep talking, human. It's held so far, hasn't it? His grin faded, his voice lowering. You did good back there, destroying that core. Thought you'd go all power mad, but you didn't. Kale raised an eyebrow. Was that a compliment? I'm touched. Don't get used to it, Vrek said, tossing the wrench aside. He leaned back, his scarred legs stretched out, his eyes distant. Lost my clan to the Valith. Thought revenge was all I had, but you and the glowstick, he nodded toward Tisara. You're not half bad, almost like a clan. Kale's chest warmed, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. Careful, Vrek, you're sounding sentimental. Vrek snorted, but his grin returned. Yeah, well, fix this ship, and I'll sing you a Krenvar ballad. Deal. Deal, Kale said, clapping his shoulder. He glanced at Tisara, who stood quietly, their facets catching the holotool's light. The crew was battered, but they were his, and he'd fight to keep them whole. Vox's voice crackled through the neural weave, sharp with urgency. Signal detected, Sylvaris weak but steady. Outpost coordinates 10 light minutes out. Also faint Concordium signatures at the Veil's edge. They're sniffing around. Kale's stomach twisted. The Concordium. They'd been hunting the core, and now they'd want answers, or blood for its loss. He returned to the cockpit, Tisara and Vrek following. The viewscreen flickered to life, showing the outpost's beacon pulsing against the nebula's glow. Etherian was light years behind, its spires likely still smoldering, but the Sylvaris were resilient. Kale hoped they'd welcome Tisara, even as an outcast. Set course for the outpost, Kale said, settling into the pilot's seat. Vox, keep those Concordium ships in sight. If they get close, I want options. Options like run or pray, Vox quipped, working on it. The Starling lurched forward, its drives groaning but holding under Vrek's bypass. The Veil's tendrils swirled outside, their violet hues softer now, almost serene. Kale's fingers brushed the data coin, Mara's memory a quiet strength. He'd failed her once, but he'd honored her choice, protecting the expanse over chasing her truth. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Tisara sat beside him, their voice soft. My people will heal, but the Shatterpoint's loss will ripple. The Valith are weakened, but not gone. What will you do, Kale Renar? Kale stared at the viewscreen, the outpost's beacon a faint hope. Keep moving, keep fighting. You and Vrek, you're my crew now. We'll figure it out together. Tisara's facets shimmered, a faint echo of their shard's light. Together, a new harmony. Vrek limped in, leaning against a console. Harmony's overrated, but I'm in long as there's profit or at least a decent meal. Kale chuckled, the sound easing the weight in his chest. The Starling pushed on, its hull creaking, the Veil's glow a promise of new paths. The Sylvaris outpost was a cluster of crystalline domes tethered to a rocky asteroid, their surfaces refracting the nebula's light into cascades of color. The Starling docked in a small hangar, its ramp lowering with a hiss of hydraulics. Kale stepped out, the air cool and tingling with the faint hum of Sylvaris tech. A delegation awaited, 3 Sylvaris, their shards glowing softly, their facets steady but guarded. "Outcast Tessara," the lead Sylvaris said, their voice a harmonic blend. "You return, bearing loss and salvation. Etherian mourns, yet endures because of you." Tessara bowed, their facets dim. "I sought to protect, not to wound. Will you accept us, though I am unmoored?" The Sylvaris paused, their shards pulsing in unison. "Your sacrifice resonates. You are welcome, as are your companions, but the Concordium approaches, seeking the Shatterpoint's fate. They will not be kind." Kale stepped forward, his hand on the data coin. "Let them come. We've got nothing they want anymore." The Sylvaris gaze turned to him, probing. "You unmade the Shatterpoint, Kale Renar, yet its echo lingers in you. Be wary, choice is never without consequence." Kale nodded, the warning settling like a stone. He'd chosen, but the expanse was far from safe. The Valith, the Concordium, the rifts themselves, trouble was never far. The crew was given a small chamber in the outpost, its walls glowing with soft crystal light. Kale sat on a curved bench, the data coin in his palm, while Tessara meditated nearby, their facets slowly regaining their shine. Vrek tinkered with a salvaged Sylvaris orb, muttering about its potential, his scarred face relaxed for the first time Kale could remember. "You ever think about stopping?" Kale asked, his voice quiet. "Finding a place, leaving the void behind." Vrek glanced up, his grin wry. "Tried it once, got bored, the void's messy but it's home, you." Kale's fingers closed around the coin. "Thought about it. But Mara, she'd say I'm too stubborn to quit. Guess I'll keep flying, see where it takes me." Tessara opened their eyes, their voice a gentle hum. "You carry her light, Kale. It guides you, as you guide us." Kale's chest ached, a mix of sorrow and warmth. He'd lost Mara, but he'd found something new, a crew, a purpose. The expanse was wounded, but it was alive, and so was he. That night, as the outpost's lights dimmed, Kale stood alone in the hangar, staring at the Starling's battered hull. The nebula's glow filtered through a crystal viewport, casting violet shadows across the floor. He held the data coin up, its surface catching the light, Mara's initials a silent promise. "I'm trying, sis," he whispered. "Hope it's enough." A soft hum broke his reverie. Tessara, approaching with a new shard at their neck, its glow faint but growing. "The Sylvaris gifted me this," they said, their facets brighter. "I am no longer of the hive mind, but I am not alone, nor are you." Kale nodded, pocketing the coin. "Thanks, Tessara, let's get some rest. Tomorrow's gonna be." Vox's voice cut through the neural weave, sharp and urgent. "Incoming transmission encrypted. It's not Sylvaris, not Concordium. Source is unknown." "Want to hear it?" Kale's pulse quickened, a flicker of unease mixing with curiosity. "Patch it through," he said, glancing at Tessara. A voice crackled over the weave, distorted but human, laced with a quiet intensity. "Kale Renar, you unmade the Shatterpoint, but its shadow remains. Mara's truth lies beyond the veil in the outer rim. Find the Nexus spire. Ask for the Weaver. Time's short." The transmission cut off, leaving silence. Kale's hand tightened around the data coin, Mara's name burning in his mind. The outer rim was a lawless fringe, a place even spacers feared. The Nexus spire was a myth, a ghost story told in Driftspire dives. But the voice, its certainty, its weight felt real. Tessara's shard pulsed, their voice steady. "A new choice, Kale, will you follow it?" Kale's jaw set, a spark of determination igniting in his chest. Sorrow for Mara, hope for answers, anger at the secret still hidden, they churned together, fueling him. "Yeah," he said, voice firm, "we follow it together." He turned to the Starling, its hull a testament to their survival. Vrek joined them, his hollow tool tucked away, his grin fierce. "Outer rim, huh? Sounds like my kind of trouble." The nebula's glow pulsed beyond the viewport, a call to the unknown. Kale felt the weight of his crew, his choices, his sister's memory. The expanse was vast, its dangers endless, but he wasn't alone. The Weaver, the Nexus Spire, Mara's truth, they waited, and he'd find them, no matter the cost. As the Starling's drives hummed to life, Kale's heart raced, a mix of grief and resolve. The veil parted before them, and the void beckoned.